today, let me show you how to install RankMath SEO and then how to use it. So there's SEO plugins out there. Yoast is the biggest, then along came, and there's a couple of others like all-in-one SEO, those ones. There's not a lot between them. Personally, I prefer RankMath. I think it's got a lot more features. There is some argument it is a bit bloated in terms of the size. So if you're going for performance, Yoast might actually be better. But the key thing to remember, like I always say, tools are just tools. Both of these plugins achieve the same thing in terms of you basically want to format your site in the correct way. So obviously the obvious ones are things like your titles and meta descriptions, but even things like when your post is shared on social media, how the featured image works and that preview with open graph schema, that can all be controlled from one of these tools as well. So today we're looking at, so all you need to do is go into WordPress and go to plugins, add new. And this is the one, it looks like they've recently updated it to call it RankMath SEO with AI tools. So they're their own name in the plugin library. So we just install it here. Now there's a huge amount of functionality in RankMath and generally most of it you don't really need. So once you activate it, it'll take you through to a installation guide, which is a bit lengthy, it's a bit annoying. You can simply select the basic mode, but generally we do prefer advanced mode, and a lot of those I just generally skip over, but there are a few small tweaks I like to make in the advanced mode. So you will need to set up a free account with RankMath. So I've already got one of those. I always struggle to remember my login. Okay, so that's all done. There doesn't seem to be any limit to how many sites you can put on the free plan, so you don't need to worry about multiple email addresses or anything like that. So in this case, we're going to do advanced mode and start the wizard. Now, the problem I found with a lot of this, it's always asking for branding. So like I say, what is the default social share image you want to show and things like that? And often I just don't have these. So in this case, this is my lawyer case study mass website. So I haven't really worried about branding yet. Personal blog, community blog, news site. This doesn't matter too much, but obviously you want to go with the one that's closest to you. We go for other business one in this case. This can give you some organization schema. I'm happy with all of these. Now, logo for Google, I think that's going to make the Fabric easier, but I think I'll just skip over that for now. Now, you can connect your Google Search Console, which is great because you can keep your Google Search Console within WordPress. Now, that's pretty useful considering, as we've seen in the recent update, if you're doing site suspicious stuff, you might want to avoid having too many sites on the same Google account. So for me, for years, that's meant creating separate Gmails for each Search Console account, each website. And then if I actually want to check that Search Console, I have to open the incognito tab and log into that particular one. Whereas if you connect the Google services here, in theory, you can have it in the WordPress dashboard, but it does mean for the time being, you've actually got to log in via this Chrome browser, but good to have all that data in one place, especially if you're not doing slightly sketchy stuff. Now, sitemaps. This is one of those SEO fundamentals people get way too caught up on, saying, we need our sitemap, or we need to upload the sitemap. Have we done the HTML sitemap, the XML sitemap? And the fact is, you do this and it does it for you. So this is automatically toggled. We do want to include images. We want to index both posts and pages. If you've got custom post types, like maybe you run a directory website and there's particular types of page you don't want to index, maybe because they're too thin or something like that, then you can remove those. Now, this is an important one. No index, empty category, and tag archives. I've talked about this before, where a lot of us, when we start blogging, we hear that tags are good for, so we put in as many as we can, no matter how irrelevant they are. And the fact is that creates all these archives of empty content, which Google doesn't like. It confuses the crawlers, and all it's finding is lots of repetitive or thin, empty content. So it's easiest just to no index them. Now, no following external links. I've heard arguments for and against this one. Some people reckon no following all your external links does have some benefits. And don't forget, a lot of major news websites have now completely no followed all their external links, which means getting these powerful do follow backlinks is really difficult. So you could pay $5,000-$10,000 to a digital PR company and you get really good links, but a lot of them will be no follow links. Now, no follow links still have power, but generally for do follow links, you've got to do direct blogger outreach, which is what we do in the agency. Now, there isn't really a problem with no following external links. There might be some benefit. So the logic there is you probably do want to do that. The exception is if you are blogging or you're a small business and you're not quite making money yet, you might well actually get lots of inquiries for people looking to buy links on your website. And if you've automatically no followed all external links, whoever you sold that link to is going to come back and say, can you make it do follow, please? Now, you can do that. You've just got to go into your RankMath settings and you whitelist that domain so it becomes, but it's a pain. It adds complexity. So quite often I leave this off and I make all my links do follow just because that's the spirit of the internet. That's how links are meant to work. It's meant to be a quid pro quo. sharing the love. But if you are concerned, you want to be extra safe, then you can NoFollow all your external links. And it's particularly true if you're doing lots of, there's some argument that you should link out to external resources in your content to make it more valuable, in which case you don't really want to be linking directly to your competitors. So if you NoFollow those links, that will reduce some of the power of that link that you're giving to your competitors. External tab, that's a good idea, because it means if someone does click on a link, particularly if it's affiliate link or something like that, then that tab remains open. Your website stays in the browser. So Google can see you've got really good retention. They're not going to your website and immediately leaving it or clicking the back button. Google does monitor these kinds of user metrics. So you want to make sure your time on the page is maximized. So opening external links, which means your website remains open, is really good. And just for user experience, it means they're more likely to come back, keep reading, as opposed to if they've clicked through several times and they've just lost it. Whereas if you're still in the tab, then they might rediscover your website the next day. Okay, and that is it. Generally, I do enable automatic updates, and now we can go through to advanced options. Now, role manager, if you have someone of a sufficient level on your team where you want them to have full access to RankMath and its controls, but you don't trust them enough to give them full control, then you can use that. So that's good for enterprise level stuff. 404 monitor, that's especially useful, especially if you're using expired domains. If there's any dead pages on your site that people keep hitting, you probably do want to be informed. Now, this is probably the most important advanced step I like to apply. For a long time, people are recommending for redirections that you install a separate plugin. I think the most popular one is just called Redirection. And obviously redirects are when a URL doesn't exist anymore and you want to send them somewhere else, or even if you're linking out to something external. So if you look in the links in my YouTube videos, you'll generally see they're all stuartvickers.com or seojesus.com/tool, and then it goes to that tool with my affiliate link. Now, I use this redirections tool for that. So you can use a separate plugin, but why do that if RankMath will do it for you? So I like to enable redirections. That's basically the only advanced step that I actually apply. Schema type. Everyone gets overhyped about schema. It used to work very well, but these days not so much. So I think generally would use article schema for our posts. Again, article, blog post, news article doesn't really matter too much, but probably best stick with blog post for blog posts. And now we get into a load of other settings. And again, you don't really need these. So bbPress and BuddyPress, if you're creating directory with those plugins, not directory, member site, and then those come into play. So you can go on and on with all these different settings, but you don't really need them. WooCommerce, of course, a good one if you've got an e-commerce shop, but generally I don't really use many of these. Now, the main thing next going forward, you do need to enable redirections though, generally, that one I do use. The next step is when you're actually in the posts. So you'll get a rank overview here. I generally don't use it though, because again, RankMath is using preset formulas and conditions, whereas I recommend using a correlational tool like Surfer, which looks at your top 10 competitors for your keyword and will tell you how many keywords to use, which keywords to use, article length, things like that. Whereas RankMath will give you an overall score here, but it's based on what it thinks is best for you, which is preset based on a large data set rather than specifically tailoring to your keyword. So let's go to Aventura Slip and Full Lawyer. And from here, it works basically like Yoast. I don't worry about the AI tools because you can just use ChatGPT. And then down here, we have the RankMath SEO box. So if you ever used Yoast before, this is very similar. So we've got this sort of traffic lighting. So generally I don't really use this because I've already optimized it using a tool like Surfer. Loads of tutorials on my channel of how I do that. But if we just put in our focus keyword, Aventura Slip and Full Lawyer, you can see we're already pretty much up to scratch. So we've got a score of 69 out of 100. But the most useful thing about RankMath is editing the snippets, because you might find that what you want to show on Google, as in on your actual search result here, like this, is different to what's actually on the page. So people often say to me that they don't like the robotic SEO keyword as the title, and that's fine because you can actually change what displays on the page versus what displays on Google. So supposing we wanted Slip and Full Lawyer in Aventura, we could go up here and simply change this to Slip and Full Lawyer in Aventura, but then we can change the meta title to display more of the SEO stuff. So currently it's pre-populated using custom fields. It's just importing the title directly from the page. Now I tend to just delete all of this. Now our focus keyword is Aventura Slip Full Lawyer. So we can now see we've got that score back. But if we publish this, in fact, we'll do that now, you can now see that Google will still see the meta title, which is Aventura Slip and Full Lawyer. That's the actual keyword we want to target. But on the page can be whatever you want, Slip and Full Lawyer in Aventura. Now, generally it's recommended that your H up here and your meta title should be the same for SEO purposes, but that's not always ideal. Sometimes you might want up here, book a call today with our leading team, something like that. So there's plenty of reasons you might want your actual meta title that you display to Google to be different. Now, this is a good way of enhancing your natural click-through rate, which actually has a variety of benefits, because if you get a higher click-through rate, not only are you making more traffic and money, but Google will see that and actually push you higher up. So for this, I tend to use this bit just for pure clickbait. So we can have our nice human readable H1 that says slip and fall lawyer in Aventura, but here we can put need an Aventura slip and fall lawyer. And this is what's going to show up on the actual Google result here. But this is not going to appear anywhere on the actual website to the human readable page. But even better, you can go really clickbait and do best Aventura slip and fall lawyer. And brackets tend to help with click-through rates. With RankMath, you can then use custom fields for dates, times, years, things like that. So for that, I think it's percent, or is it 1%? It's different between Yoast and Rank. So we put percent, current month, percent, and we've instantly got March. And then we do percent again, and we just do current year, and then percent, and then we've got March 2024. So you can see we've instantly made this much more clickable, much more baity. We've got best Aventura slip and fall lawyer, March 2024 in brackets. I'm not sure if this is still working. You can quite often get emojis into the search results. Let's try the explosion. No, let's go with the legal and justice emoji. Yeah, it's showing up in these mess titles. There's no reason it can't show up ours. So we can just copy that. And again, just paste that at the beginning of the search result. And then with the meta description, we can basically do the exact same thing. Looking for the best Aventura slip and fall lawyer today, or a free quote. So by default, Math will just pull in the H1 title from the web and the first few lines of text. Don't forget with the meta description, it's best not to overthink it, because Google will quite often select its own. In fact, a lot of the time it will select its own, even if you have put your own tailored meta description. So generally I don't worry too much about this, but it is an option. And there have been plenty of times as well where it seems that Google doesn't really respect your chosen title either, and may well rewrite that. But it's worth trying. Obviously, if you've got emoji, in caps, best Aventura slip and fall lawyer, March 2024, and that will dynamically update, then you're naturally going to be much more clickable, get a higher click-through rate, more engagement, and therefore a higher ranking. So those people will make the mistake of actually putting the date in the title. There's a variety of problems with that. So obviously each year you have to update that, and most people don't realize we've also got the permalink here. Now you want the permalink to be your keyword. So we're targeting Aventura slip and fall lawyer. As we've already had the H1 by default, the permalink is normally the title you set for the post. Now, whenever I build a site, especially using bulk AI tools, the title is the keyword we're targeting, and therefore the permalink is also the keyword we're targeting. So by default, this has worked out fine. However, if you're just starting out and I'd written best Aventura slip and fall lawyer 2024, then this would also say best Aventura slip and fall lawyer 2024. And that means for all the time that article update in 3 years' time, my permalink is still going to say 2024. Now, you might think I can just go in here and update it. That's changing the URL, and URLs will age and improve in Google. So yes, you can change it, and yes, you can set up a redirect. In fact, it will do that automatically if you've got rank, so that anyone who lands on the 2024 one will automatically go to the 2025 version, but Google will treat that as a new page. So I'm always saying it takes 3 to 6 months for a page to rank. The average position 1 result is around 2 to 3 years old. So content ages like a fine wine with Google. Google really values time in the market. So if you're constantly changing your permalink, you're resetting that clock every time and shooting yourself in the foot. So you want the permalink to be completely ambiguous, non-time sensitive. You just want it to be the keyword. But even up here, if you put in 2020, that's going to stay as 2022 forever. And if you've done 100 blog posts, that's going to be a pain when it comes to changing it. There are WordPress plugins that will let you automatically find and replace across your whole website, but you don't know where you might have 2022 lying around, where you don't want to change it, maybe in the code somewhere. So you don't want to do that. Whereas if you just do current month, current year, most people don't do current month. So I always like that. It's a nice way to just be a bit more timely. And as long as Google's regularly crawling your site, it will notice the change. So often by the end of the first week of the month, all your pages should have updated on the Google search result. It will have indexed the new version of the title, so it will always stay up to date. So that's pretty much everything we want to do here. The next big thing I like about RankMath is FAQ schema. Now, this has been really downplayed lately by Google, but it used to be that certain results would get FAQs. It used to be if you search something like best landlord insurance, a lot of results would get little drop downs underneath, which meant you got a bigger search result. But Google announced a couple of months ago it was going to downplay that, and if I'm searching this search result, I'm not finding any, so we really don't worry about that anymore. But if it comes back or you want to do it anyway, you need to be using the Gutenberg block editor. Because I'm using autoblogging.ai, I've switched this to the classic editor, which means I can't do that. There are ways around that. But if you're in the Gutenberg editor, you can just click the plus and drop in FAQ schema, and it's just a little block where you can fill in your questions and your answers, and that'll be then formatted in the correct way. But once ChatGPT came out, we started actually coding the schema manually where we just tell ChatGPT to write the FAQs in the human readable format and then rewrite them using Schema, and then would actually paste that into the text editor so that they didn't show up on the front end, but they did show up to Google. But like I say, not currently working, probably not going to come back, so you don't really need to worry about that anymore. So if you don't want to use a tool like Surfer that can be quite expensive, these are obviously pretty good fundamentals and best practices to follow. So we've got a score of 72. Personally, I don't worry about trying to optimize this up to 99, 100. Because, like I say, it's out of sync with what's actually working. Again, title readability and content readability down here is probably hidden by my head at the moment. I zoom in. Yeah, this is nothing really to write home about. Useful best practices if you don't have much marketing experience, but people do get obsessed with trying to move the needle and get up from 87 to 91 to 3 because they've got the power word and they've got the number in the title. And it's true, these are all good best practices. So if you can get a high content score, then great. But like I say, much better off if you're just using like Surfer and then you're using good headlines in the middle. But then, like I said earlier, if you go back to your posts archive, then you can just see in bulk how all your content scores are doing. That only works if you've actually set the keyword in that field. So quite often if I'm building a site, I'm just going for speed and scalability. So we've already got an optimized page of content that we've got from Surfer. Therefore, I'm not bothering to put that focus keyword in that field at the bottom. And therefore, these are all blank as they are here. But if you do that, then it will check if they're in line with those best practices.